It was said that the sleeping giant of Australian sport awoke on the famous night that John Aloisi put that penalty past Uruguay in November 2005. Now, 5 years on, in the wake of what has to be described as a disastrous World Cup bid, has soccer gone back into a coma? And here's a lady we like to call sports social conscience, Rippa Rita.
That was beautifully put, Mark. I couldn't have written it better myself.
Well, you did write it.
I did.
Yeah, don't muck around. This is all Rita's. She's on her own on this one. She's put this on the table. I just read the intro. Off you go.
Well, soccer is dead. You said it's in a coma. I say it's dead.
You wrote it and I read it out.
Well, I'm updating it to dead. Look at the crowd numbers. I think crowd numbers are a beautiful indicator of where the sport is in this country.
Mm-hmm.
They are embarrassing in some parts of the country, particularly the Gold Coast, which have recorded crowds.
You've got notes.
I've got notes. 1,658 turned up to a match, 1,714 to another, and 1,716 to another. No wonder they're throwing open the doors and saying it's free entry for everybody. Let's see how many they get along then. And if it wasn't for Clive Palmer and his billions, this team would already be dead.
I'll give you that. It's a disgrace, it's a disaster, it's been no different from start to finish. But don't base a sweeping statement that soccer in Australia is dead based on one team not being able to get anybody
I'll give
to
you
turn
Newcastle.
up.
That's another team. If it's, again, Nathan Tinkler, who's a multi-millionaire, almost a billionaire, he's now charged with the responsibility of saving that team. Mm-hmm. The sport is in trouble in this country. We care about the World Cup, but your average Aussie sports fan does not give a stuff about the A-League.
It's true. You get more people to watch the Socceroos train than you do to some A-League games, and not just those ones you mentioned. I'll give you that. Crowds aren't great, but in soccer's defence, or world football, as I like to call it, in world football's defence...
World football. Can we just call it soccer? We're in Australia.
In world football's defence...
It's not Brazil here. We call it soccer here, not football.
In world football's defence, it's almost a TV game in this country.
It's not on free to air.
Can I finish the sentence? I know this is all you, but it is on Fox exclusively, and that's part of the allure, but every game is, and it's a massive content. Yes, free to air is much more important, but without being on television, non-mainstream sports, which soccer, you could argue, is in this country, not in the world, and it shouldn't be, but you could argue it is right now, it must have TV coverage. But the TV coverage is almost that good that people don't want to go.
2/3 of the population don't have Foxtel. I know you do, so you think everybody else does. When you're only on pay TV, no, because I have a life. When you're only on pay TV and you're still not getting crowds, then you've got no excuses. I'm not going to put it out there. I know it's not a popular thing to say, but the game is bloody boring. You know, you can call it the beautiful game. I call it the boring game. Nothing happens. That's why, unless it's something of the importance of a World Cup, most Aussie fans don't care. And I'm putting it out there. That is why there is so much violence involved with soccer, because the crowd get restless, there's very little action, there's no physical contact, and it's incumbent on the crowd to entertain themselves with bashing each other. I'm putting it out there, and it's true.
Can you apologise for that last line? I'll apologise.
Do I need to give you examples of soccer
I'll
violence all around the world?
I'll give you, because I'm very anti-flares. I'm half there with you. I think
Never
the idea
mind flares. Flares
of throwing
are just silly.
flares because you think it's fun, but the amazing things that they get thrown when they score, not just when they don't. That mentality I do not get. There is a culture in world football. You see it in every game, not in this country, but in most parts of the world, where the fans have to be separated. Now, you can separate the fans and you can go along that path. Is it a recipe for disaster? Does it mean that eventually something will happen? Or do you actually try and get to the heart of that, the root of that evil, if you like, and change the culture so that fans can go and enjoy the game, the beautiful game, for what it is, in different colours?
The culture of the sport is rotten, Mark. I mean,
You sound like Andrew Jennings here.
Well, we don't have this sort of incidents at other sports. We don't have people bashing each other silly at the Olympics or at baseball or at cricket or any other sport you want to name.
There is crowd violence at other sports, and when alcohol's involved, there will always be crowd violence.
There might be just some drunken idiot, getting himself arrested, but you don't have fans of opposing teams actually having riots. We don't have that in other sports. I know the soccer fraternity would like to believe that, this is true, all sports have these problems. They don't. It is something that is almost exclusive to soccer.
Okay, but we don't have those problems here. We don't have riots here. We do have the fans mingle with each other.
We don't have
That's-
any
that's a
fans
wonderful
to
thing.
riot. That's why we don't have any riot.
So
What we're gonna-
why else is it dead? It's a big call. You can't base it just on crowds.
Well, I think it's dead. I think just and this is on my own personal research that
Oh,
I've
yeah,
done on the
it's all your
streets,
own
which is
personal
extensive.
research. It's all your own personal opinion.
People just don't, it hasn't engaged the community. People do not care what happens with their team. They don't really have a team. If there's a bit of rain about, no one turns up. It could be thundering down and your committed rugby league or AFL fan will go and see their team. Soccer fans, I don't know, there just doesn't seem to be that commitment there or that level of interest to get them out there.
Okay. So,
I don't know.
okay, so it's broken. Surely it can be fixed. Like the
I don't know
A-League
how
was
it
supposed to
can
be
be.
the saviour,
All
and it
our
certainly
hopes-
started with a lot of momentum, and it certainly has tailed off.
It started off well, and all our hopes were hinged on that World Cup bid. That was
Yep.
going to be, what got the sport flying, and we all know how that ended. It was
One vote, not one goat, one
45,
vote.
and now we're hearing maybe 60 million of taxpayers' money was spent on that bid. Perhaps 45 wasn't all that was spent, and we got one vote out of it. So fantastic. And Frank Lowy, he seems to be Teflon man. He seems to cop very little criticism. Something needs to be said about his involvement in this bid because he seemed to drive it and manage it, and when it failed so abysmally, surely he has got to wear some of the blame.
Abysmally.
What did I say?
Abysmally. Frank Lowy did cop a bit of criticism from Craig Foster, who doesn't
true.
hold back. In the Fairfax Press of the weekend,
And Robbie Slater said a
he
couple of
actually
words.
suggested that Frank's time was up. Frank, it's not the first time that's been mentioned, by the way, but I read in that article, it was a really good read. I enjoy his stuff, that a couple of former Socceroo greats had questioned whether the administration of the World Game in this country was time for a change. It was, we should do something else. And apparently Frank responded with everybody has a use-by date, i.e. they've been out of the game too long, who cares what they say? And Craig pointed out with some irony that, yes, that's the point, Frank. Perhaps you have passed your use-by date. He's done wonderful things for the sport. He's been behind the bid and would have been, as big as Warney if we were able to land the bid. We got one vote. I'm not saying that's Frank or Ben Buckley's fault.
Well,
but the fact that it's been and gone and we're not going to be bidding again and we're not going to get the World Cup in the foreseeable future, and the fact that the A-League is broken perhaps means that there has to be some sort of change at the top.
Before he resigns, though, I want him to sign a cheque for 45 to 60 million to the Australian taxpayer. And I say that seriously. He's Australia's richest man.
He can afford it, that's true.
He can afford it, and that money, there should be some sort of an inquiry into what happened with that money. How can you enter a race that's fixed and spend taxpayers' money on these crooked consultants, and they are crooks. I'll
Again,
put
you
it out
sound
there.
like Andrew Jennings.
I do. We pay these blokes literally millions for that one vote.
Well, we didn't pay them for one vote. We paid them to sell our bid, and we got one vote. Sepp Blatter, in the last week or so, was quoted as saying Qatar may offload some of its games to some neighbours because that's what Australia was going to do. New Zealand were going to host some games.
That's news.
That was, yeah, exactly, particularly to the FFA. That was a thought of a couple of years ago. It was nowhere, because it's not true, it was nowhere in the book, in the presentation. So the FIFA president didn't even know the mechanics, pretty basic mechanics, of our bid.
I don't think anyone
That's an
actually
amazing revelation.
read our bid. I don't think
No.
anyone actually looked at the detail.
Did Al, do you reckon Al bothered to?
Who's Al?
Al McPherson, who was
Oh,
rolled out
goodness.
just at the end to try and save us?
That was that and that abysmal video. I said it correctly there.
Good.
Should have guaranteed. Yeah, we knew we weren't going to get it. Why would you roll Elle out? Really?
I don't know, she's a good-looking lady.
She's a
Perhaps she
good-looking
is
lady,
Liz
but
Hurley.
she's no public speaker. And unless she's going to be, performing some services at the back on the old bastards, there's no point to bring her out there.
You're upset,
I don't
aren't
know.
you?
I am, as much as I don't care about soccer, I care about taxpayers' money and I care about the World Cup. And I just think we've been dudded. I'm angry and I want someone to pay.
Okay, so I'll just say, as we wrap this up, once again, written and spoken by Rippa Rita. Yes, she's the good old social commentator, but everything she says, in fact, most things she says, is certainly not the view of management. We'll make that very, very clear. Time
You're
to go.
soft.
Time to go. Just want to tell the viewing audience again what you think of the World Game.
Boring game. It is boring, really. Why do we bother?
All the best, and bye for now.